Hello, good afternoon, everyone. First, I want to say I'm really impressed by this morning's session. I felt like the questions that were asked were so valuable, and the energy in the room was so great that I feel there's a lot of promise right now for Brazil. I'm jealous because I feel like this country is on the way to amazing and beautiful things that I hope that our country can follow the lead with your energy as well. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story. I am a teacher. That's where my heart is. I was teaching first in Los Angeles, and then I moved to Boston to teach for a little bit longer. And in my work in Boston, I became a teacher leader. During that time, as a leader in the school that I was working in, I found that there was a system that we have in the United States called tenure. And what it means is that in our traditional schools, the longer you teach there, the more solid, the more secure your job is. And so there were many teachers who had taught a long time who were doing just fine. But there were a number of teachers who had taught for a very long time who had a secure job, but were not teaching to the standards that our students deserved. And through that process, I found myself being a new teacher and actually being told, as a school leader, but a new teacher, that I had to leave the school I was leading as a teacher leader. And this was extremely disappointing to me. This was deflating to me because I felt like I was on the edge with the school that I was in and that we were doing great things for students who deserved it. At the same time, as I got the notice that I needed to leave this school, my principal cried because she said, "I'm sorry, this is the system we're in and I don't know what to do." And so I thought, I think I need to look for a new job. But I'm a teacher and I felt that this was such important work. And so I said, one more year, I'm going to teach. And as I do that, I'll look for a new job. I went back home to San Diego and found this strange startup charter high school called High Tech High that also had a charter middle school, High Tech Middle. And I said, okay, I'm on my way out of education. I need to find where I can do the work with children that I believe is important, but maybe it's not as a teacher in the traditional system. So at High Tech Middle at first, I taught 7th grade math and science. And the first thing I realized was that the students were running into the school. They were so excited to be there. And the next thing I realized was that all of the staff worked together in a collaborative group where they felt like they could be energized and try new things and support each other in growing and taking risks. I also found that I was treated as a professional. I had my own office as a teacher. I also was told that I could say to children, I love them, and this wasn't a bad thing. I could tell them first, I love you first. This is the most important thing in my classroom. And my students responded to it, and also I was able to take risks, so they were able to take risks. They saw that in that safe space. So I am still with High Tech High. That was in the year 2004. And now I have, in 2005, I opened High Tech Middle Media Arts as the director there, then had the opportunity to open one of our high schools, High Tech High North County, and now I'm working at High Tech High International. Continue to remain in education, still a teacher, but in an administrative role. So, High Tech High in the year 2000 was born out of two groups that were looking for solutions. One was a group of educators, kind of liberal, hippies in disguise. These educators were on the New Urban Schools Project, and their task was to go across the country and to find high schools that worked for kids, that created significant learning opportunities and that worked. They went across the country, and one of the struggles that they had back in the early 90s was it was hard to find high schools that worked. The other group was a group of San Diego business leaders. These business leaders found the struggle of hiring the new hires from the top colleges and universities across the country, but having to do so much training to get them ready to be productive and innovative in their new businesses. These were businesses that were on the edge of biotechnology and technology in San Diego. So these two groups came together and said, what if we designed a high school that used the components of meaningful learning, significant learning, and created a workforce that was able to work together as collaborators, that was able to problem solve together and articulate exactly what they had learned and then present to a larger group. So they created High Tech High in the year 2000. Then, at this point, as you probably heard from Melissa Agudelo, my colleague, we opened up 11 schools over the last 13 years. We opened High Tech Middle as our second school, and High Tech Middle was basically because at High Tech High, we realized in 9th grade, we have to do so much work to get students into the new culture of learning that is much different than the traditional system has trained them in. And so we created that ramp for ourselves that began now in 6th grade. Then we found that there was more interest in this type of learning, which you've heard a lot about, project-based learning. You heard a lot from Diane. So instead of growing a bigger school, because we were very clear that we didn't want a big school, we wanted small private-like schools in order to really know our students, we opened another high school, High Tech High International. And as the interest continued to grow, we continued to open more and more schools. At first, we opened in Point Loma in the center of San Diego. Then we moved to the south and to the north of the county and opened in Chula Vista and also in the North County, San Diego. At this point, like I said, we have 11 schools. Our next school will be an elementary school that we open in the North County as well. So, as Melissa mentioned earlier, but I'll just go into a quick review, our design principles, these design principles came out of the new urban high school project where our founders, Larry Rosenstock and Rob Reardon, were looking for the components of high schools that worked. They were looking for high schools that worked. And what they found were these things were most important. That we personalize the experience for every individual. That relationships were first. Relationships with the adults and the students, relationships between the adults, relationships between the students. That we create a community where each individual is respected and loved, an important word in schools, I believe, loved. That each individual is loved and respected for the unique gifts they bring. The adult world connection, that school happens, that learning happens when we connect with the adult world, the business world, the professional world. That we do that partly through internships and partly through the project-based learning. A common intellectual mission, meaning we don't separate our students. We believe that the best learning happens when all students are brought together in the same space and that they learn from each other. And we don't just mean that the low kids learn from the high kids best. We mean that everyone brings gifts to the room, to the experience that is valuable for everybody. And teacher as designer, that the teacher is respected as a professional, that they are the person who designs their curriculum with a collaborative group of adults and their students to create the most meaningful experiences for kids. Sometimes we are asked to think how to simplify this even more. And so I go to two things that I think are most important. One is social class integration. That's that we bring people, that our children from the whole community together and that they learn together. And the second is progressive pedagogy. That we are innovative and constantly thoughtful and reflective on the work that we are doing with our students. So now I'm going to take a risk. And this is a little bit different than what we've been asking you to do. So I'm going to ask you to work with me. The first thing to know is this is a safe space. Like every classroom that I hope you're in and that I work in, we create a safe space where all answers are acceptable, where everyone's going to bring something unique to our space and that we can learn from each other. That's the first. And the second thing is that We need you. It's not just acceptable, we need you to participate in order to make this most meaningful for everybody. So, I'm going to ask you to think back. Think back to a time in either your middle school years or your high school years. Now, this could be a time during school, or it could be outside of the regular school experience that you had. And I want you to think about the most inspiring, significant learning experience that you had. I want you to think about that. I'm going to repeat that because this is an important part of the next 10 to 15 minutes. I want you to think back to your middle school and high school years and think about the most inspiring, significant learning experience you had. It may be in school, it may be out of school. So, I ask, this is another risk. I ask people to be brave, to share, to raise their hands so that we can share and come together with a collaborative list. And it's always better the more people that offer. Yes, we have someone in the back. Mari's going to come around. There we go.
Inspiring teachers. Teachers that make us think about what we are discussing in classroom. This is what Raquel brought to me and is part of my answer too. Teachers that can make us look at the world in an inspiring way.
Inspiring teachers. Teachers who make us think about the world in an inspiring way. Beautiful. And that'll come up here. If we can get a little bigger font, Mila, that would be great. Maybe 24. Keep going. Who's next? Go ahead.
Go ahead. Desafios possíveis e graduados.
And that means, Mari? Challenges. Good. Challenging. It's a very challenging experience. Yes, over here?
Evento relacionado com uma ação social, com um contexto real. Ou ter significado com o contexto dos questionamentos da vida, do adolescente, do período de vida que está se vivendo.
Connection to the real world. Beautiful. And over here, yes?
Rebeldia.
Oh, rebellion. Kind of like revolution. I see. I love it. Yes. Oh, there and then next. Oh, yes, Diana.
As nossas duas experiências de aprendizagem significativa não aconteceram no ambiente da escola.
Ah, it's outside of the school. It's not always in the walls of the classroom. Beautiful. Yes.
Nós conversamos sobre desenvolvimento da autonomia do aluno, learner autonomy, e incentiva a pesquisa também, né?
So, research and autonomy.
Autonomy?
And research.
And research. So you get your student choice. And research is involved. Yes, over here.
Afetividade.
Effectiveness. Effectiveness. Yes.
Desejo, vontade. Trabalhava com o desejo, com a vontade. It was working with the will, the desire of the students.
Working with the desires of the students, knowing your students so that you can know what they would like to do. Yes.
Atividade que possibilitou uma maior relação com os colegas da classe.
Interaction with your peers, collaboration. Thank you.
Perspectiva acerca do outro, sense of otherness.
A sense of order?
Otherness. Otherness.
Oh, of other. Sense
Otherness.
of otherness. Can you explain a little bit more what that means?
Dialogue, conceiving the other as a person that can build collaboratively with you.
So, working on understanding other perspectives, different things.
Yes,
beautiful.
otherness.
Thank you. Who do we have? Yes.
An active learner where he puts the theory into practice.
Active learning, putting theory into actual practice, learning by doing.
Tá.
Yes. Do you have one, Mari?
Yes. Tá. Tinha produto final.
You have a product to show in the end. You had a product, something to show in the end?
You have something in the end to show, a product. Okay, we'll take two more. Yes.
Responding goal life.
Responding to
an objective of our lives.
Life goals. Things that are important in your life goals. Yes, goals are important as well.
Here, Nicole.
Yes.
Oportunidade de criar algo com tempo limitado.
We can create something in a short time.
There's a short amount of time and you create something, you pull something together. So now we have worked together, and I know that there are so many more people who have so many more traits, but we have to keep moving. Thank you for sharing, everyone. Thank you for practicing together, for working together. This is an activity that we do, and we ask most people that we work with to do, so that we can think about, as educators, how do I create significant learning every day for my students? What are the important traits that we need to be thinking about creating for our students all of the time? And then how can we do that? So how can we do that? I'm going to skip that. Well, at High Tech High, as you know, we use project-based learning as the center for this. And what you just shared is the reason for that. We're trying to create as many significant learning opportunities as possible, that we understand with depth in our engagement, in our collaboration, in our design through project-based learning. So I'm going to show you a quick video to help you come to San Diego, even though you're not there right now. Hopefully this will show you what we do there.
Our goal when we started this school essentially was to try to create a place where when you walked into it, you couldn't tell whether it was a technical school or a college prep school. There are three axioms of public education in this country, particularly in high schools, and they are that you separate students from each other based on their perceived academic ability. You separate hands from minds, and you separate school from the world beyond. And we try to integrate those three things. We integrate students, we integrate the subjects, particularly technical and academic pursuits, and we try to integrate with the world beyond school as well. Line up.
It takes about 6 weeks to build the robot. We don't just build the robot, we also compete as far as competition goes. Everything that we do, we put it all into a document and we stand in front of the judges and say, look at us, this is what we do, this is, you know, these are our achievements, and we kind of like try and say, you know, like we're the best, and this is, we want you to recognize that. We've had a 1,000% increase in girls this year, which was really cool. It's a really enjoyable thing, and it's definitely great because it involves us in the community as well.
These 21st century skills, these kind of employability skills, were really college prep skills as well. If we were able to pull together a program where we were asking kids to work in teams, ask good questions, to consider multiple perspectives in the work that they're doing, ask how things are connected, take big picture views and so forth, that we would be preparing them both for college and for careers.
If you want it wider, you divide X by, so like 10.
Ooh, that's perfect. I found this image by Basquiat that I really liked, so then I kind of broke it down into all possible math, which I pretty much like just isolated parabolas and cylinders. So then I wrote like a page of notes about it and then projected it on and made two different like compositions of my notes and then made the background. So I'm trying to emulate Basquiat, but also incorporating a bunch of math.
I think the culture of High Tech High in general, not just our school, but the whole village, is a very hands-on approach. collaboration is a big key element to a successful project, in my opinion. I think they're going to get a deeper, more meaningful understanding of the subject as a whole, as opposed to one tiny piece of it. And so it's really neat that I can go to any of these kids and talk about ancient Egyptian engineering. I could talk to them about their daily life. I can talk to them about the architecture of pyramids and obelisks, and talk about volume and surface area, and talk about gods and goddesses, and every single one of them would know all about it.
Yeah, it'll work once we have our training group.
My first year here, I should say, was like my first year teaching all over again, and it was a big learning experience, very big. I needed a lot of support, a lot of help, as do pretty much every new teacher here. But through the years, you just kind of get used to how to structure projects, how to give clear-cut expectations to the kids to get the best outcome you can get.
A lot of it is about building a common culture of learning and questioning and feeling comfortable kind of articulating your observations and analysis.
So what if we did like 7?
Yeah.
No, 6. No, because 5 and a half right there.
Go with 6. And then the wheels can be like that much.
Okay.
Let's do 6, because we can always cut away. Okay, 6.
6 it is. Okay. The assignment of the project is to create a toy, and we're going to donate them to an orphanage down in Mexico. We started out with like a blueprint, and it has to have 1 input, and for our group 5 outputs. So some of those things are the ladder moving up and down. We have the fireman. He's going to be like hanging off the side.
I think it's always a critical thinking exercise when you have to start from scratch, when you're building something from nothing. Create your ideas and then see the flaws of those ideas, refine them, and develop them out, just like you would do in the real world. So there's a lot of troubleshooting and questions that you have to ask, like what's causing this to fail, or why isn't this fitting together right, or how come these didn't work the way I thought they would work. And so that really forces you into that critical thinking mindset. We definitely work in teams of 2. Each student is responsible for creating similar things, so one student doesn't do all the work. They both have to do sketches, they both have to have individual parts that they're responsible for. So we try and create a collaborative environment by doing that. At the end, we have a reflection and a share out, so everybody can kind of say what they've learned and where they've grown and what they didn't know before.
It just blows me away every day to see the kinds of interactions that you see between adults and kids here. You see very little behavior management going on the part of adults. It's all conversation about what happened last week, or about this assignment, or about the project we're doing. That's what's really distinctive about the place, as far as I'm concerned. It's the quality of relationships. It's really all about relationships and the kind of interactions that you see amongst adults and kids here.
So there you were able to see a little bit about the types of projects that we do from middle school up through high school. We do currently have 2 elementary schools as well, and I have to say that we've been actually pushed, our high school teachers have been pushed by the innovation of our elementary school teachers in project-based learning. It's been really exciting to see our 4th graders design boats and pilot their boats in the middle of the harbor just like our 9th graders did. So this is something new that we're actually getting pushed by the younger students and the elementary school teachers to be better with. So when we think about project-based learning, we think about kind of 3 different levels of the work. Planning as a teacher, and planning with a group of colleagues. We always start with the end in mind, so we do something we call backwards planning. We say, what is the final product or exhibition or experience that we want to create? What does that look like? Who is the audience? How do we want it to be? And oftentimes, we talk to students about this, and we get their critical feedback. We also talk to our colleagues, and we do critique of our colleagues. We have many protocols that we use in our morning meetings that support this planning. We use something called Adria Steinberg's 6 A's, which I won't go into with you right now, but I might be able to get back to. And then one of the most important things is that you, as the educator, do the project first. You will save yourself many headaches and your students many roadblocks if you yourself do the project first. Second stage is the management. Once we get started with the project, how do we keep our students moving in a way that values their time and your time, and also that gets them to create the most beautiful work? So we put in place benchmarks. We have our students build calendars with their teams. Usually we find 2 or 3 students as the best number for collaborative teams. Once you get too big, you end up losing some time, or we have a project lag. And again, our students are involved in critique sessions. They know in the beginning where they need to go, and then they support each other in creating beautiful work by doing what we call gallery walks through critique. Finally, we exhibit, and we exhibit to an authentic audience, an audience that is meaningful. It might be an outside professional organization. It might be we do a play for younger students. We might have made a coloring book for Spanish. We might have made a video with public service announcements for specific demographics. So we focus on exhibition, and that's when our students really, that's showtime. That's when everything comes together. And we say that how well we did is all known on that night, or on that experience through the exhibition. So I have run out of time, but I thank you very much for taking risks with me today. Thank you.